This episode of Storytellers is brought to you by these fine companies.
Hi, I'm Gary Densham. You're watching Storytellers on Competition Plus TV. When I first met John Force was our first trip to Australia, Christmas of 74, 75, and we're a bunch of dumb young guys, didn't know nothing. And like we were talking earlier, in that era there was 400 funny cars across the country, and you knew of some of them. Obviously, everybody knew Domperdome, and everybody knew Raymond Beadle, and everybody knew Jungle Jim. But there was a whole bunch of the rest of us that didn't really know each other unless you happened to race them at your local racetrack, and so, by pure luck, I got picked to go to Australia. And how it actually really happened was the contact in Australia, a gentleman named Keith Williams, who owned the track at Surfers Paradise and at Adelaide, was friends with Ray Brock, who was the editor of Hot Rod Magazine at the time. And they had tracks over there that were primarily circuit courses, but they had a straightaway long enough to make a drag strip on it, and the sport of drag racing was growing and growing in Australia. And so Keith thought it'd be kind of neat to bring American cars over there. So back in the very early 70s, 71, 2 or 3, I can't remember exactly now, he brought what they called American Drag Fest to Australia. And it consisted of E.J. Potter's V8 motorcycle, Shrewsbury's wheel stander, the Bushmaster dragster, Jess Tyree's funny car, and it was a huge hit. And then when he came over here to visit with Ray, they went to Orange County and saw a 64 funny car show. And they knew right then that funny cars were what they wanted to have over there. And so they took Gene Beaver's L.A. Hooker and Henry Harrison's Vulture over in 73 because they happen to know Bill Shrewsbury, and that all connected, and that's how it all worked out. Anyhow, and it was moderately successful. I mean, the crowds loved it. The cars didn't really put on the performance that they probably should have, but it was a hit, and the fans loved it. And so next year, Keith, trying to do really the right thing, had contacted Jungle Jim and Ed McCullough. Now, you couldn't have got two better cars, anywhere in the country, and set the whole deal up 8 months ahead of time that they're going to come over the Ampol New Year's Series at Surfers Paradise and 4 other racetracks in Australia. And about 3 months before that, Jungle contacted him and said, "No, I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm not going to come." And so in kind of a panic, they didn't know what to do, so they tried to go back to Gene Beaver and say, "Can you take the L.A. Hooker back next year?" And Gene says, "No, but I got this. My nephew would sure like to go, and he's really good," and all this other sort of stuff. And I didn't know this story when I went, but that's how John Force got his first car. And Gene Beaver told John Force that, "Gee whiz, they won't know any better. You'll be a hero. Doesn't matter, you haven't driven it, haven't got a clue what's going on, but you can go over there and trick those silly Aussies and, make a fortune." And so John bought the car from him. And then about 3 days before the cars were supposed to be shipped, or actually were supposed to be at the dock to be shipped, they're sitting there waiting around for McCullough. And not there. So they thought, well, gee whiz, we better call him, see when he left. Well, they called him, he answered the phone. "Oh, by the way, I'm not going." So now they got to get another car. And Shrewsbury and I go way back, and I'm sitting at school at lunch, my feet up on desk, eating an old dead chicken leg, and Shrewsbury and this guy in a suit walks in. And we've always kidded ever since he showed me pictures of all the beautiful beaches and beautiful women on the beaches in Australia and all this stuff. But when are you going to get me a trip to Australia? So he walks in, "You want to go to Australia?" Thought it was a joke, like we always kidding around about. "Sure." "Well, you can if you want." "Well, when?" "You got to ship the car tomorrow." By pure luck, my car was ready to run. It was sitting in the LA Auto Show here in Southern California, the premier spot as you walked in the door. And I didn't have a clue. And first of all, I had to figure out where Australia was, so I went and got a globe, held it up, and looked there. Okay, I found out where it's at. And then I thought, well, you know, I've only been teaching school for 2 years here. How do I take a month of January off to go racing as much as I might want to do it? And probably the luckiest thing that ever happened to me is Dr. Hanford Rance was our principal at the time. And all of my years in education to this day, he's still the one person that I admire most in education. And just incredible man, absolutely incredible person, leader like you can't believe. And so I walked in and I said, Dr. Rance, I had this opportunity to go to Australia and represent the United States with my race car. And he looked at me and he said, you're a fool if you don't go. When I was in World War II, we spent all our R&R time in Australia. You better go. And that's probably, you know, might be, when you talked about defining moments of my career, might be it, sitting in Dr. Rance's office. And anyhow, we loaded the cars, we showed up over there, and I had never met John Force till I saw him walking down the jetway in Honolulu Airport. And back then, we were lucky if we had a T-shirt with a picture of our car on it, and it obviously didn't take the team we need now to race these cars. It was me, my wife, and a friend, and here comes these three guys strutting down the jetway with their leather jackets and sponsors and cowboy hats and all this crap, and I'm thinking, we're just going to get our butt kicked. This is going to be terrible. And I didn't know at the time that none of them knew anything about the race car, and John had never driven it. And so anyhow, we show up at Australia, and they're talking a good talk. It sounds good, I'll tell you. And we got to do press day on Thursday, so we go out there, and deal was they flied three helicopters from Brisbane out to surfers, dropped them out there and drug their cameras out, and we're supposed to do a burnout, back up, and do an interview. So I start my car up, do a burnout, back up, yaddy yaddy. John's turn, he goes to roll through the water, tires get dry, hits the gas, he goes, so he backs it back up, puts it in the water, and I mean, this is a burnout that Jungle Jim would have been proud of. I guarantee it was spectacular. Trouble is, about 300 feet down the racetrack, all this fire is rolling out from underneath the car, and he throws all the rods out of it. That's when I found out that nobody there knew how to work on this car. Because in order for us to have a race that weekend, I had to completely rebuild the car and put it all back together for him before we could go out there. And once again, I still at this point didn't know that he had never driven this car. And so we show up the first night at Surfers Paradise, and you got to remember, the track's not very good, probably is a little short, probably is a little dark, and John hasn't got very much experience, if at all. And so, you know, we go out there the first run, do the burnouts, back up. He can't get it out of reverse. So I make a single. It kind of smokes tires from one end to another. Go back, next run, do the burnouts, back up. He hits the gas, smokes tires, shuts off. I make the run. Next run, we go out there, do burnouts, back up, stage. I lead, he leads. I go through the lights, got the parachute open. He comes by me, and fire's just rolling out from underneath the car again. He goes through the barbed wire fence at the end of the racetrack, stops about 4 feet from a cow. To this day, I don't know how he didn't hit